Hello and welcome to the Right Click Save podcast. We are, as always, your hosts, Calcio and Jimmy T. We'd love it if you could subscribe below and give us a massive like on today's fantastic episode.
Yeah, today we spoke to Noah, the co-founder and CPO of the Keys Metaverse, and he came on to talk about their latest NFT drop, Meta Mansions.
We haven't jumped into a Metaverse project for quite a while, and it was just genuinely really refreshing to hear a massive builder.
It was a massive one. I think even just like the prep for this one, just reading through all their white paper and looking through the website, there's so many different facets involved with this NFT project. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It was really good fun just to get our teeth into this one. So yeah, it's a great one to listen and watch along to. So we hope you enjoy it.
Let's go. Yeah, I'd love to kind of start today, really, Noah, with learning a little bit more about you as a founder and what it was that brought you to NFTs in the first place.
This is a really big aspect of what makes Keys and how we started. So way back in the day, actually not too long ago, I was at business school. I was on a full ride scholarship, just wasn't really happy, and I was feeling it actually inside, and it was taking a huge toll on my mental health and actually my physical health as well. I had kind of the picture perfect lifestyle for a business student and was actually at one of the best schools in Canada at the time, and just wasn't really cutting it for me. So I decided that it would be the best idea to start fresh. I actually ended up leaving school, quitting my job, and basically cutting everybody out of my life and going dark for a year. And during that time, founded a marketing agency, which did amazingly, but really started to dive deep into crypto. And a few years prior in 2017, I'd actually written a thesis paper on the implications of blockchain technology in business. And it was really ironic because at the time I said, you know what, this is really just not something that the world needs right now. And it's definitely not up to par with current standards. So fast forward 3 years to 2020, I dropped out of school and was working on this marketing agency with a business partner. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we get blindsided by COVID. And I watched every traditional market, equities market, crash. And I knew that there was a massive opportunity in front of us, and I wanted to capitalize on it. So I weighed all the options, looked at stocks, looked at indexes, even looked at gold and other commodities. And then really was just kind of thinking that none of them were checking my boxes in terms of my investment thesis. But what did check my boxes was Bitcoin. So without really knowing too much and thinking too much, I threw everything that I had into cryptocurrency in 2020 and had been somewhat involved from 2017 on, but hadn't really taken the leap of faith until that market crash. So fast forward a year from there, I ended up making crypto my full-time job. Still running the agency from the side, but definitely making the majority of my money from day trading and swing trading through Bitcoin and crypto. So yeah, fast forward again, another year from there, had met up with a bunch of really other great traders and got an office together. And through our gains and our stories of making actually ridiculous gains, we had met some really unique people, including Nima, who ended up becoming the CEO of Keys. And at the time, Nima had a real estate marketing network on Instagram, the biggest actually on the platform, which reaches around 300 million people a month organically. So he was looking for a way to kind of scale his business up and get out of the service-based industry and also capitalize on his community. And what better way to do that than with blockchain and crypto? So we found a lot of really great synergies there. And after a month or so of brainstorming and kind of going back and forth on how we wanted to approach it, the idea and roadmap for Keys, Meta Mansions, and our Metaverse was born. And this never really was something that was set in stone. It's always been something that's changed given market conditions and the opportunities that present themselves. But the general idea has remained the same from day one. So that's kind of how I went from a more traditional route in business school into a fully decentralized Web3 based job. And I think my love for this industry has really come from the fact that I've fallen out of love with the system, and I've fallen in love with being able to control your own path and really have agency over your life and your decisions and assets. So love this space and everything about it.
Oh, I love that. I love a crypto genesis story. I think it's one of my favorite things to hear. How people got into it. And it seems like you waited for the exact perfect buying opportunity. If you bought during that COVID crash, it was an awesome opportunity to buy.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually, I think beginner's luck and a little bit of a little bit of scarcity. But yeah, I ended up getting Bitcoin in at around 8,500 average buy, and then ETH
Nice.
at just under 100.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
I
Okay, cool.
I stepped away and completely didn't touch it for a year. So
Nice.
also beginner's luck probably nailed the top. I sold it around 60K and 4,000. So it's a great first trade.
You just give me your wallet address so I can copy trade you from now on. That'd be great.
Anytime.
I think one of the things that interests me the most is really how it seems to have flowed quite nicely. One of the things I was obviously going to ask you about was how you came to being so involved with having a metaverse as your first kind of project in the NFT space. But like you said, you'd come into contact with other people who had the right connections for that to work for you guys. I guess just zooming out a little bit for you, how are you finding that transition to having this huge ecosystem that you manage, but haven't seen in full yet because you're still building so much of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always been something specifically for myself that's been a strong suit. We always kind of talk about the idea of a metaverse, and it seems so foreign to so many people. And a lot of people actually say we're not ready for it. But I always kind of just smile and laugh, because the reality is that we've been functioning in the metaverse for so long. And coming from a marketing background, both me and Nima, our CEO, we function specifically on Web2 social media platforms. So it's actually felt like we've been living in the metaverse the whole entire time. And with our experience and background in crypto as well, and sort of blockchain, NFTs, it's actually provided a really unique perspective, because all that we're really doing here is trying to build the next level of content consumption and distribution, which would incorporate VR, AR, and 3D. And in my opinion, those are technologies that are included in the blanket of Web3. So for us to be at the forefront of this industry and also really take our experience and the things that we know work and didn't work from Web2 platforms, being the ones who leverage them to sell products and services for other businesses, it's really just been a logical progression. And thankfully, not only with Nima and our own backgrounds, we've actually been very fortunate to leverage our entire network of people who have very, very deep experience and background in specifically VR, AR, and gaming technologies. So we'll get into that as well. But I think it's been an amazing synergy of the last 4 to 5 years of all of our different professional careers coming together and really embracing the idea of Web3.
The metaverse is a term that's like thrown around a lot. It's really broad, and sort of I think embarking on a metaverse project, was this something for you individually that really stood out, that excited you about the metaverse, or what the metaverse is kind of purported to be?
Yeah. I mean, I was a little bit taken aback. I think the term that was coined, metaverse, is really only a thing because of Facebook.
Yeah.
What it took for us before we committed to coining our project as a metaverse project, quote unquote, was really determining what it was that we were trying to do in this space. And from day one, when we looked at it, it was really just about bringing people together and leveraging technology to, at the time, our mission and vision statement fell along the lines of leveraging blockchain technology to increase transparency and speed and reduce cost and friction. So what that does is essentially bringing people together using technology. So as we move forward, and obviously a month after we launched, Meta had changed their name, we started to consider the idea of the metaverse and what it meant to us. And for us, if you were in Miami and listened to our speech there on the keynote, the metaverse definition that we've been sort of rolling with is the idea that it's not really a place or a game or a thing. It's more of an era that we've been living in and have changed our perception of based on the term. But it's an era where people are just leveraging technology to improve their ability to interact with one another in the world around them. So with that, we kind of realized that at heart, we are a metaverse project. And the more we looked into how we could leverage our existing experience and resources to embody that idea, it evolved from being a token and NFT project to a full-on metaverse project where we're building a hyperly accessible and photorealistic experience. So it's been a very interesting progression and lots of pivoting and changing over time. I'm not going to be the guy to come and say we've had it all planned out, but I think now more than ever our vision is very clear, and I'm super excited to see what we have to bring to the table.
That's the biggest thing, I guess, to take away as well, that there are so many times that you have to pivot and change what you're doing. You can't just have an idea and then stick to it, because not just with a metaverse, but just any NFT project or business in general, a lack of flexibility will leave you really, really exposed. Just scaling it back a little bit though, Keys Metaverse is huge. There's so many dimensions to it, so many tendrils, and so much to learn. For those listeners that are not as versed with the universe you guys are creating, is there any way you could give us a kind of beginner's guide, I guess, on how the Keys Metaverse works and all the different arms that we've got to it?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess starting from a super basic level, and also where our organization started from day one, Keys. So Keys token is our utility token. You can find it on some major centralized exchanges as well as on Uniswap. It's an Ethereum-based ERC20 token. Nothing special to it. Does have a bit of a 3% fee, which we are actually looking at removing very, very soon with a special announcement. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, so Keys is going to be used specifically for transactional and progressional utilities. So what's really cool about this is that we wanted to reimagine what a utility token was all about. And a lot of metaverses use them specifically to buy, sell, and trade the assets within the metaverse. But coming from a gaming background and a Web2 background, we wanted to figure out how we could encourage people to hold the token and then also really think about how they use it, because it might be a bit more special than just transactional. So with this, we've built in something called Loyal Key. And what's cool about that is it's basically like your traditional AAA game leveling system, except instead of experience points, you use Keys token. So the more keys you hold, the more benefits and access you gain within our metaverse. It's kind of a you got to weigh the benefits and costs. Like, do I want to use my keys to buy an asset? And we are working on ways to incorporate other NFTs, or do I want to hold them? And what benefits me more?
For me, it's really clever because I think a lot of projects make the fatal error of, like you said, copying that default. We're going to make a currency and everyone's going to want to use it for this, that, and the other. But for you guys to have given a specific use case that not forces, but really enables the use in the metaverse that you guys are creating is massive, because it instantly changes the way someone engages with the content. I think on one of the previous conversations you'd gone over, someone asked, how are you actually going to get people to engage who are not naturally technology or game-wise encouraged? And one of your answers was so succinct in just saying, we are trying to create an experience which is so hyper-realistic and enjoyable for anyone. And I'm really excited to hear a bit more about that as you kind of go on.
For sure, yeah. And Loyal Key was kind of the first step in that direction, because our question was, how do we keep people engaged and give them value for holding that's external to transactional utilities? So that was a really cool progression in our journey and our value to our holders. But next on the list was Key Card, which we launched. It was our Genesis NFT collection for Keys. It was a collection of 118 access and sort of membership cards. And one thing that we really want to hold close to heart at Keys is the idea of involving our community in the development process. Because if there's one thing Web3 does best, it's taking feedback and implementing. Because what is your community, which is your entire IP, without user feedback? So our goal with this was to not only provide benefits to the holders and reimagine what utility looks like in an NFT, but also establish a focus group of very highly committed community members that we could pull on to provide feedback on our products. So KeyCard is kind of twofold. One, we have a global network of key partners, and this is kind of where that social media network comes in. We've partnered with a lot of very high-end luxury brands and lifestyle brands to bring discounts and benefits to our holders. The other side of the card is that we involve all of our key card holders in UAT processes. So in case you don't understand what that means, it's user acceptance testing. So you get access to all of our alpha and early releases before anybody else, and then help us develop an experience that is good for our ideal user. So it's been a really cool process with our key card community, and it was a massive success from day one, sold out in under 32 seconds and is now sitting around 100x from the floor from the mint price. So really great community, loving everything about it. And I think it was a great sort of trial for where we were headed, and also a great way to set the standard for how crypto and Web3 companies can position more as a startup, and also find a way to leverage these traditional practices of user feedback without having to pay people from websites and on the street.
The dynamic features that you've got within the project are so refreshing to hear. Like, don't get me wrong, we've spoken to all sorts of different people via the podcast, and like, as you'll know, if you go to NFT events, you you get pitched or chat to a lot of different people. And the consistent theme is that a lot of the projects you do have an interaction with have a very basic idea. Like, for example, they go, we're building a metaverse, and that's it. And they don't start to build these layers, like super consistent things that you guys are doing, like having a feedback group of people who are not only happy that their investment is 100x from where it was, but they're dedicated to the project because they genuinely enjoy it. And it's all these little layers that you're feeding in that just lead to it being so much easier for someone who is looking to get invested in a metaverse and choose their maybe first opportunity to step in to an NFT based one. So much easier for that to be my conclusion when I look at your project, when I know that there are all of these built up layers.
For sure. And it's definitely an active process, right? And one that it sounds all clear now, but honestly, as we work through this, it's continuing to be clarified. So a lot of the props can be given to our community and the feedback they've given us and on how to move forward. But in general, it's a very interesting conversation because I was actually speaking about this yesterday with one of our business partners. When you look at a Web2 brand, and that is wondering why they should get involved in Web3, it's, the value of a company in Web2 and just traditional spaces is really based on its ability to generate revenue. And the brand IP is a massive aspect of that, right? I mean, you could be making $10 a year, but if your brand IP gives you the ability to mint out $10 million in collections every 5 months, that's a massive value on your brand. But when you move into Web3, the idea of brand kind of changes from your front-facing sort of creative logo, messaging, etc., into your community, because your community is what makes it so powerful. So that was kind of what we realized after Keycard, is that we've established this really great small community, but how do we turn this into something that's much more impactful and can make a big difference and a splash in the space? And that was kind of the genesis of MetaMansions. MetaMansions is, the whole point of this is to establish a residency and a diehard community, kind of like we did with Keycard, but that would feed into the first stages of our metaverse. And we'll talk about the metaverse in a second, but MetaMansions was, for what the purpose was, a massive success. And phase one, obviously, we were planning, to be 100% honest, we were planning on minting the whole thing out. And there was a number of different things that occurred online that made it a difficult process for us. And I'll be the first to say that we are fully transparent in everything we say and we put out. And I hope that through the post-mint activities, everybody's seen that we are here for the right reasons. But it made it a little bit difficult to carry out. So phase two was our chosen path forward. And now, because of that decision, we are a project that's here to prosper for the long term. And a lot of our holders that were part of phase one are very happy as a result. So MetaMansions is a collection of 8,888 digital residencies, huge focus on the art. We spent a lot of time developing them in 3D space instead of sort of layered 2D PNGs. Made a fully customized pipeline in Unreal Engine that factors in lighting data, UV maps, etc., so that we can match textures and attributes on top of bases. So yeah, if you check it out, it's on OpenSea. I think we're getting very close to phase two. So before we talk about phase two, anything that we wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I think, like, obviously, there was the controversy that happened a while ago, and that is one of those things that Web3 seems to be super consistent. People are very keen. Again, this is across any business, but they latch on to something. And it's so refreshing, again, to see that you've taken that criticism, accepted whatever you want to make of it, and not let it affect the continual growth of the business. Because I think it's very easy, we see it every single week, for a project to mint out, take that money and slowly disappear. Whereas like you guys are consistently doing, building more and actually making something happen is nice to see. One of the obvious questions off the back of that, though, before we do go to phase two, is the project is massive. And even without the challenges of people being frustrated like they occasionally get, what have been some of the biggest obstacles you've faced within the creation so far of the universe?
Yeah, I mean, I think the initial problem we wanted to solve is how can we differentiate inside of the metaverse? And it was a huge question before MetaMansions to figure out, because what is a digital mansion without a metaverse that can be around for the long term? Basically, if we can't figure it out, there's no point or value in the NFTs. So it was a huge question for us, and our team really came together. And luckily enough, we were working with a really great team of people from Genius Ventures, who were some of our longtime friends. And we came together, did some ideation, and realized that, one of the biggest problems with the metaverse today is accessibility and quality. And we basically just asked the question, how can we solve this? So ironically, for the last 4 or 5 years, Genius has been at the forefront of solving these two problems for some of the largest brands in the space, including Verizon and the NFL, Gensler. And check out their website, you'll find it all. But we were already sitting on a massive amount of IP and really just had to modify it to figure out a way to bring it to Web3 in the metaverse. So that was our first biggest hurdle, was figuring out how do we make this scalable and develop it in a way that's attractive to Web3 users. And I would say that was probably the biggest hurdle we were able to cross. But in the interim, as we build all of that out, like that was ideating it was a tough problem to solve. But in the meantime, building it has been a whole different ballgame. We've had to really bring together some of the top talent around the world and start to solve some of the problems that only the biggest companies in the world have been able to. And thankfully, we have the team. We've been able to push through, and now we're really about a month and a half away from sharing this experience on a very powerful engine with our holders and some of the rest of the crypto and Web3 community. So very excited for that. And two of the biggest hurdles in our existence so far have been hurdled.
Nice. I love it that you guys are doing it on Unreal 5 as well, because there's just so many cool projects being built at that moment, and I'm so excited for so many of them. Rolling it back a little bit about what you were discussing and how you came up with the kind of direction you wanted to go, how much did it feed back from the kind of demographic that you're targeting? How do you identify the market for the metaverse? What is the process for that?
For sure. And this all comes back. You'll start to realize there's a lot of full circle moments. And we are like to be very intentional with how we position things, but it really came down to identifying what we envisioned the metaverse to be. And it was an evolution of those Web 2 platforms into Web 3, with content consumption being at the forefront, right? If you take a look back a decade or a couple decades, it goes from very auditory based content with the radio to more visual, and then Web 2 social media starting with photo and then evolving into video and now AR. So the next logical step of that, in our opinion, is this, what we're developing. So the goal for us with our target demographic was really targeting mobile users, right? In a world where roughly 80% of the population has mobile devices, that's exactly what we were shooting for. And then obviously we have some much more detailed customer avatars. Our favorite ones, his name's Chad, kind of fitting for this space. But yeah, it's been a process of iteration. But the core focus is a mobile first approach and device agnostic approach, so that as maximum people can access, for sure.
Yeah, I think that accessibility side of what you guys are doing has definitely stood out in everything that I've read through your white paper and the things that you've said today.
Of course. Yeah, so I guess we can kind of come back around to meta mansions. Now that you kind of understand what exactly they are and where we're headed with them, phase 2 is now, as of the time that we're recording this, roughly 4 days away. So what's cool about phase 2 is that it's the second half of our collection. We paused the mint during the whitelist rounds and called that phase 1. So we still have 4,444 mansions in our treasury that have been revealed but not distributed to holders. So instead of moving forward with a mint, we would much rather just reward the holders that are with us today. So we're going to be airdropping 1 mansion to every holder for every mansion they hold in their wallet on July 18th at 2 p.m. PDT. So it's basically just like the same thing as a mint. They will come in your wallet revealed, but there is no correlation in rarity or attributes to what you're already holding. So it's basically luck of the draw, open deck of cards, and you could have something that's very average and get airdropped something that's really special.
How do you think it's going to affect the existing market for meta mansions?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that we've actually spoken about a couple of times on a podcast with Steve Asher and also internally, obviously. And it's kind of a win-win, because one of our number one goals is to bring in more residents. Like, a neighborhood is only a neighborhood if you have a bunch of people in it. And So right now we have around, I think, 1,400 holders inside of our community of 4,444. Obviously, we want to bring a lot more in. So when you increase supply based on simple economics, demand stays the same and price tends to drop accordingly. So we'll find that point of equilibrium wherever that is. You can probably do the math yourself. But either way, given the fact that everybody's getting airdrop one-to-one, you either come out in profit or you come out where you were before. But what it does is it lowers the barrier to entry for new residents to come in and join our community, which is honestly one of the biggest wins that we could ever take. The bigger our community, the better we can share.
It's one of those the biggest things, I guess, that comes with it as well, is that you have to do something progressively, right? You have to make those judgment calls about whether or not, like you have done, do we mint them at a lower price or do we airdrop them? Those are the two biggest, I guess, questions that you were asking yourself as option wise. And I think that if you were to have potentially taken the mint price that you minted at before and reminted them, they'd have sold out. But the negative effect I think that would have had for your collection would be far worse than what you're saying, which is absolutely fantastic, which is that if I am a holder, I can choose to keep it, which is absolutely fine, or release a bit of equity on what I've already invested and bring in another resident who's happy to have paid probably a little bit less than what they would have paid a few weeks ago. So there's a lot of, I guess, dynamicism to how you do things. And again, it's testament to how flexible you've been throughout the process. The other thing, I guess, to look at as well, though, is how you think the universe sets itself apart from others. Because whether you like it or not, every market's super competitive. And at the moment, we obviously know the metaverse space and that hot buzzword is massive. There's so many different projects, from the people operating on NFT worlds to companies like yourselves and biopills and all sorts of others. What is it that you think you guys are doing differently that's going to ensure that you do just grow those residents exponentially?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that obviously, as the person who's leading our product direction right now, is very much top of mind. And I've really had to come back and start looking at addressable markets and who our competitors are. Because if there's one thing that we can all unanimously agree on, actually maybe not everybody, is that it's much better to own 99% of a small pie than 1% of a big pie. And the reason for that is because when you own 1% of a big pie, you will get crushed. You will get eaten by all the bigger players in the space. And finding your own niche is probably one of the most important things for successful startups. So a little bit of a headshot there if you're looking for advice as a startup founder. So looking at that, with that in mind, that's actually the strategy that PayPal took back in the day with Peter Thiel, and taking a lot of inspiration from him and looking at actually reducing competition as opposed to increasing it, because competition prices out profits, and without profits, no business is functional. So for us, it's a process of taking a step back and being like, okay, what's currently being worked on right now, and where are there holes? Right now, I see a lot of gaming metaverses, and it's amazing. They have a lot of backing, and the play to learn, play to earn model is definitely super saturated. There's going to be a lot more players that come into the space, but it's going to be one that's hard to compete with due to the people that are involved. So I kind of crossed that off the list. And then I looked at the other direction with enterprise, and there's a lot of really great integrations for sort of e-commerce, right? Amazon did a great job at leveraging Web 2, and we can look at the same idea of leveraging Web 3, starting with selling digital real estate, just like Amazon started with selling digital books. And that was a really interesting approach. But honestly, in my opinion, there's some players and some projects in the space that are going to do a really good job at that. So making that our share of the market was not the best opinion in my opinion. So bringing that all together, it was, where do we really position ourselves? Obviously, we want to capitalize on gaming and also commerce with our token. But how do we really find our spot? And coming from Web 2, it was so obvious when we took a breath and looked at it, because everything that made our previous businesses successful and the platforms that we built our businesses on successful was that they supported creators. And so we've shifted our vision to two simple words, and it's just empowering creators. So how can we build a platform on something that's hyper realistic, which is very attractive to large and small businesses from the physical space, and also hyper accessible so that we can still hit those same demographics as Web 2 platforms, but then also empower creators to build at scale, because it's not really feasible for us to say we're going to go out and build a 88,888 plot map worth of content in 3D space in anywhere close to 5 years. So the best way to do that is by providing a platform for other people to build on. And this is when you start looking at understanding that the idea that, the biggest metaverse projects and the most successful ones, the ones that will stick around, are ones that are going to position as platforms and provide the tools to creators. So that's been a huge focus for us, is how do we provide the right tools for creators in a very complex space, which is 3D design, to make it easy for anybody to access and add to the space.
It's very cool. I think one big thing for me, as we sort of touched on earlier, is appealing to the masses with these kind of things. How do you think metaverse projects such as yourself are going to onboard those Web 2 people that haven't ventured into the Web 3 side? Do you have to be properly au fait with everything, the way that blockchain works, to use your project, or is there a lower accessibility for the muggles, as we like to call them?
Yeah, so with the idea of accessibility and the fact that you can just share a link, just like most people are used to with OnCyber, click on it on a Twitter or Instagram post and fly right into the metaverse. There's a number of questions which would be sort of the business requirements and accessibility requirements. So do you have to hold Keys token to come into our metaverse? And I think to start, that's probably how it's going to be, just to manage our server costs and runtime as we run tests. But the general goal is that, you can come in and use this space and experience this space as you see fit, regardless of whether or not you're involved in our ecosystem in Web3 or Web3 as a whole. And the goal would be to show people what's possible, and what the beauty of Web3 and blockchain is, given that I love it so much, and as does everybody in our team, with our metaverse, and then let them make their own decision if they want to use it. So make it so accessible that you can get the base set of features, the foundation, but then encourage people to join us on this beautiful journey of Web3 by providing some really great features on the upside.
It's good. Talk to me a little bit more. Let's just scale it back again, because we've got the grand plan and a lot of it's come to fruition really nicely. There's a feature on your website, because it's super simple to follow, where you can see each stage being ticked off as it's completed, which again, super simple, but it just looks so clean, and it's nice to be able to go back like we have throughout this discussion and just make sure that all those things are ticked off. What's happening next? Let's talk the next kind of month, 2 months. We've obviously got the drop on the 18th, which is fantastic for existing holders. Where are we going after that? What's the next phase?
Great question. And yeah, I mean, just before we kick this off, we were discussing the idea that, this space is built on anticipation. So the second that people don't have something to look forward to, you're kind of losing momentum. So we know that better than most, and we have some really great plans coming up. So phase 2 on July 18th, and then in late August, we will be sharing the sort of proof of concept, beta, alpha version of our metaverse, which we're calling the single player experience. It's going to be a single level, single mansion, but with all of the great features that we're looking to include inside of our metaverse at a smaller scale. So if you're part of our community, you will be able to use that. Basically, just click on a link on our website and then hop right into the experience. On top of this, we have a really exciting announcement coming up. We've been deeming it Project Mercury. We've dropped a bunch of hints, Mercury being the god of wealth and prosperity, also the 8th planet in the solar system, and the eighth element on the periodic table of elements. So we're very lucky number 8 focused, and it's a great hint toward where we're headed. So that's going to be announced right after phase 2. So everybody should get excited about that. And then on top of that, we're also working on some really great NFT collections, which I can't quite share yet, but some of them will be airdrops and claims for existing holders. So lots of really cool stuff, plus some things under wraps.
That's the blend you've got to go for, I think. For me personally, as a huge fan of fantasy lore and just world creation, one of the things that gets me most excited is when a project is really trying to not just have the bread and butter, but they want to build every layer of it, and they want to really immerse themselves. Because for me, I want to experience something properly. I want there to be nuances and small finesse details to what is being built in front of me, and I want to feel like I've really got to engage with it. But equally, what is really refreshing is that there seems to be an opportunity for someone who isn't quite as enticed by that side of it with the Keys universe. I don't have to be on that super high level of understanding and loving blockchain technology. I can just appreciate the way you've built the 3D renders. And obviously throughout the episode, we're going to be featuring all of them on the TV screens and everything like that. So our viewers will have seen just how vibrant and different the mansions are that are on offer. Do you have a personal favorite, or are there a few that you really like that you've put together so far?
Yeah, the one that he'll probably put up from our renders is the Meta Mansion. It's kind of funny to say, but I love that space because it's so open and also has some really great interior opportunities. But if I was going to choose one, the one that sticks home in my heart for me is the Aether one, or Ether. And the reason why is because my dad's actually an architect, and that was the one. His one contribution to this collection was the Ether base.
Oh, nice.
Actually named it after some Web3 inspiration with Ethereum with a slightly different name, sticking to the Greeks theme. But yeah, it's a beautiful design. It's actually the only floating mansion in our collection, and it just feels a bit different because it's from somebody that I love and care for very much.
I'm excited about it. It's very cool. I very much liked. I don't think we've really touched on it much through the questioning. The when I was reading through the white paper, people's ability to create in-game assets and selling them as part of your or in metaverse assets and selling them as part of the economy. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is part of the creator, empowering creators vision that we have, and we're building out these things that we're deeming to be called creator tools. So these are obviously quite complex, but in essence, it's essentially taking all the difficult aspects of 3D creation and simplifying them into sliders and drop-down menus, much like the MetaHuman avatar creator from Unreal or Epic. So we're working on these in the background, but I mean, to start, where we really see this going is starting to look at offering our metaverse as a platform for people to build on, right? There's a lot of really talented 3D designers out there, and I think one of the biggest issues is they don't have an outlet to experience and share their skills with the world in an accessible manner. So what would be great is if we can take this engine and provide people access to continue to use it and display both Web3 integrations and their 3D designs with the world inside the Keys Metaverse to start. So I'd say that's probably the heart of it all. And then on top of that, we have some really cool ideas for community engagement and adding creation, both by releasing the 3D files potentially to our mansions so that people can figure out how they want to distribute that and use them in their own way before we get to that point.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's just, I love with these projects, it gets to a point where it's interesting to see you've got the base level and what the community is going to do with it and how it's going to evolve and explode and grow.
Yeah, I mean, with something this big, this is like a multiple 9, potentially even a 10-figure project when you look at the long-term roadmap. It's massive, and it's going to require a lot of help from the community and also people who have been in this space for a while. So learning how to develop lean and stick to lean development processes, iterative development processes has been a really big winning factor for us. And these phase-by-phase approaches where we can get feedback from people is amazing.
How has it been for you though? Like, as in, just as Noah, just scale it back a little bit, take a back step from understanding and trying to create this incredibly complex world. For you specifically as an individual, it must have been a bit of a crazy journey. Like, there must be moments where you're like, hang on a minute, this is incredible, but also a bit mental.
It's been an absolute trip, if I can say the least. It's there's definitely been some moments where it's been quite a lot, especially leading into a massive pressure environment, a hugely pressured environment like a mint of a collection that was potentially at the time going to mint out around $30 million in NFTs, and you got everybody betting against you and everybody betting for you at the same time. So that was a huge learning experience, and obviously through this whole process, being involved with some of the best players both in the traditional tech and Web3 spaces, it's been just a really great journey to be put in pressure and learn how to grow at a rapid pace. So obviously been sleeping very, very little. We've been running many sort of 18, 20-hour days, but I've fallen in love with that process, and it's kind of the idea of very selfishly trying to take advantage of a situation to better yourself. And what we found is that when you just wake up in the morning and you say, I'm so happy to be doing what I'm doing because I can become a better person, everybody around you, including your community, benefits immensely from it. So we're just very obsessed with personal improvement, because what is a good project without good founders?
I love that. I think it's one of the easiest things to fall into a pitfall of is ending up doing something you hate doing just because it makes money, and just you end up very quickly realizing that it's just not congruent. And certainly for investors as well, you can tell if the creator is dispassionate or not very interested in what they do. So it's really refreshing again to hear that in spite of the challenges that come with any business, and again, as you said, you've had a bit of a trip, it's nice to hear how consistent you are with still making content. To close us off here, the question I love to ask anyone we have on the podcast is, in a minute or less, how would you sum up the Keys Metaverse?
I could do it very quickly, less than a minute. So the Keys Metaverse is a real estate-centric metaverse project focused on hyper accessibility and photorealistic experiences. And the whole goal here is to empower creators. So if you're a creator, whether that's in 3D space or more traditional art techniques, this is the metaverse for you. And we are looking to optimize the way that people can access those creative endeavors by making it hyperly accessible. So come join us. We're very chill, and we have a great community.
Definitely recommend for people to check it out. And what we'll do is we'll stick a load of links in the description below. So links to your Twitter, to your website, and just how to find out a bit more information.
Awesome. Really appreciate you guys having us on. It's been a pleasure meeting you both, and hopefully we do cross paths again in the future somewhere.
I'm sure we will. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've been your host, Calcio, joined by Jimmy T as always. Thank you so much, Noah, for your time today. And we'll see you all again soon. Ta-ra.